Welcome to today's webinar, courtesy of the Kentucky Small Business Development Center in Louisville. Discover no-cost, valuable business services to help you thrive, whether starting your entrepreneurial journey or scaling your existing business. We have the resources and expertise to help you succeed. For more information, please visit our website or text 502-977-5800. Thank you for joining us today. Feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions or engage with our speaker. Let's get started.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Dave Betkin. I'm here with at the Louisville Small Business Development Center. I'm the director here and also a business coach. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I am joined with a man who needs no introduction, JC Phelps, another one of our coaches here in Kentucky. So it's always an honor to have you here, JC. You are just a fantastic individual, a really true expert in all things.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. And, you know, JC's been a coach with the SBDC for a long time too. And, you know, we get this question and complaint all the time. It's like, I'm spending all my time trying to figure out, am I making money? My finances are a mess. And what can I do? Do I need to hire a Big Four accounting firm to help my small business? And so JC was very nice to come and help us out tonight. So, but first, as always, if you look at the bottom of your screen there, you'll see the toolbar. If you don't, just hover over there with your cursor, you'll see the chat feature. Just click on that and it should come up. And just to make sure that you can see and hear us, just type your name, say hello, and tell us where you're joining from. We had some disastrous technical difficulties earlier, and hopefully we've got them all worked out. I want to make sure that there's actually people out there. So, okay. Let's see, Vicky, Sierra from Louisville. Hey guys, Jenny, Lexington, Monticello. Oh, that's a cool town, Monticello. Radcliffe, Laura, Cadiz, Kentucky, Charleston, Indiana, just across the river from us. Louisville. Hey, Whitney, Charleston. Is that South Carolina or Charleston, Indiana? One of the two. Indiana, thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. And as we go through everything today, if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the chat. JC is really good about watching the chat. He may just break in there. We can have some Q&A at the end, whatever you guys need. But this is really key because bookkeeping services, financial services for small business, while so necessary, can be very expensive. And JC, who really took a lot of time and energy to come pull together a lot of cheap and inexpensive and free resources to share with you guys tonight, and some other techniques to kind of pull your finances together and help you out in that manner. So JC, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's get started. This is something that everybody's waiting for.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you from KD's to Louisville. We have lots of people on the call. I also saw Brittany from Monticello. Good to see you. 2 nights in a row with me. What a displeasure, but happy you're here, my Lake Cumberland sister. I am going to go ahead and share my slides with you all, and we will rock and roll. I appreciate y'all being here. And as Dave said, when I was in the field working as a business coach, this is something I heard about all the time, and it's a huge issue. So what I've done tonight is I have pulled together some resources, some tools that I think are worth looking at. I'm going to tell you about them, pros, cons, all the stuff, in an unbiased format. We're not affiliated with any of these, but I think that these might be some great options for you. I always like to take just a second and tell you about the SBDC. If you are not familiar, the SBDC, or Small Business Development Center, we are Kentucky's. We do serve all 120 counties, and we see lots of county representation here on the call. And Our services are spread in centers with territories around the state, but we all work together. And so we come together and serve the entire Commonwealth. The SBDC two main services are primary service, business coaching, as Dave said. That's when we work one-on-one with you. And then we have training and education, similar to what we're here doing tonight. The best part is that working with us one-on-one, for example, just like you're here tonight, these things have no expense to you. And that's as we are co-sponsored through a cooperative agreement with the United States Small Business Administration. We are administered by UK and many other partners around our state that make our program possible. And for that, we are grateful. As Dave said, I'm JC Phelps. It's a pleasure to meet you. If we have never been in a training before, chances are, if you've been around the SBDC for a multitude of years, you've been in a class with me here or there. And Dave and Janet and Louisville are nice enough to invite me to come present with them. They are awesome, and I appreciate the work they do for our program. My email is here on the screen. If you want to take a photo or reach out, I would love to hear from you and help you in any way. I do serve the SBDC now as the statewide training coordinator, and so serving in a training and education capacity, but certainly have that field experience as I was a coach for years. So Janet very beautifully titled this Budget-Friendly Bookkeeping Tools to Streamline Your Finances, okay? Finance, in my opinion, is the most important part of business. You may disagree with that. That's just JC talking. But I don't care how good of an idea you have. I don't care how rock star of a crew that you have. I don't care what location you have. If you cannot manage your finances and your cash flow, it ain't going to work in the long run. To be feasible, we have to make a profit. And either one, you're going to greatly diminish your profit margin by not properly accounting for your expenses and all the things that inflow and outflow out of your books. And or it may take you into the negative when maybe good bookkeeping would make the business more cash positive. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. If you've ever been in a training with me, I like a burden of proof. I'm going to prove to you why we need bookkeeping, then we're going to talk about the tools, okay? You might be thinking, I don't have time for bookkeeping. My opinion is you don't have time or you can't afford to not have the time to do it. And as Dave said, if businesses have endless cash flow, they certainly can hire a large accounting firm. But as we all know, small businesses work at times on a tight budget. And so that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. Bookkeeping matters because it maintains your cash flow. I think anyone in business will tell you that cash flow is one of the most critical parts for the business to successfully live on. You got to know what's coming in and out. And so often we don't realize what is going out, and that's dangerous. It's February. You thinking about April 15th? I'm sure you are. Prepares you for tax season. You don't want to be that person scrambling, filing an extension, missing deductions, things like that. Certainly supports growth. We'll talk, about loans. If you are trying to get investment, if you're trying to expand, if you don't have good books, good luck, right? You've got to have an accurate picture for that. I think many people would agree that finance is stressful. When I teach classes that have a finance adjacency, I always say, now I'm not going to do math with you all night, I promise, right? No math. Everyone would run away. But business owners have enough to stress about. But good bookkeeping, while it does take an investment of time, maybe in the beginning, certainly in the beginning, to get it all set up, it will save you time in the long run, that I promise. You're going to make better decisions for the business. You are going to be in compliance, right? Making sure you're keeping your books straight. You do not want the appropriate parties saying the books are off, what you've done is wrong, because that is punishable, okay? So when I was thinking about my clients over the years and what challenges they told me they had in their bookkeeping, this is what I saw often, just to throw this out before we get in the softwares. First and foremost, people are not very good at keeping personal and business separate. This hurts your tax preparation. It creates confusion and quite literally can take you out of compliance. And so we've got to separate those. That's got to be point one before you do any software. And software can help that, certainly, but that's something we've got to have in mind. You may not be trained in accounting or bookkeeping. I've heard that all the time. And here's what I'll tell you. I have a degree in finance. I have a master's degree. I'm about to defend my PhD. I did not learn how to fully keep my books without that education or with that education. This is practical knowledge that can be learned. Absolutely. Anyone can learn to keep their books. You just have to have the mindset in the beginning that it's priority. The other thing, and we're going to talk about this at the end, this is my steadfast view of anything in life or business, is that consistency matters. And people out the gate sometimes will start so strong, right? They're going around the first curve, we're doing well, but then they slow down, or they get inconsistent, or they stop doing things in the right way. That is an issue. A few others, small expenses. Sometimes you may think, that was kind of small, it's negligible. I don't know why that is a thought. My view, no expense is negligible. It takes away from your profitability and can increase your tax burden. If you can legally and ethically write something off and or track an expense, you better track it because it will add up. I think you'd be surprised and probably mortified if you're in operation what those expenses could look like in aggregate. Cash flow issues, if you're not keeping what's coming in and out and you have a big bill come up and you don't have the cash flow to do it, what are you going to do? Might you go in debt? You'll have a financial shortfall, severe cash flow issues, the business may close. It's a disaster. And people are inefficient, right? I'm old school. I like some things. I like to write on paper. I still do things like that. But as fast as business moves now, we have to have advanced ways to do this. But advanced ways do not mean that it is hard. That's the good part. You're not planning for taxes. You're not viewing financial reports, which inform your decisions. You're choosing the wrong software coming very soon, right? And you're not budgeting and forecasting. So many issues. And I could have done a whole training just on this, but that's not the point of tonight. Tonight was I wanted to make a case with you for a few minutes why this is important. Okay. So what you need? What should you be looking for? This is my view. I say requirements here because this is JC talking. This is what I think you should have required when you think about it. Affordability, I don't care, what small business we're talking about. Having good value matters. And for most of us, affordability is that perception that we think about good value, but also scalability. Hopefully your business is going to grow. Some software does have limitations, and that has to be taken into effect. Cloud-based access and automation, what do I mean by that? If you have everything on paper and you lose your paper, what you going to do, right? It's gone. And so I want a software that I can access from multiple points. Work computer in the office, your phone, whatever it may be. Usability matters. I want things to integrate. There's nothing more, I almost want to say annoying, and I think that is the right word, but inefficient when the things that we have don't click. We got to put them together and make sure they integrate. I don't know about you. I'm a finance person. I do not have a CPA. And so I'm not an accountant. I don't file my own taxes. I can promise you that. I would never file my own business taxes. And so I need something that's user friendly. And I'm going to assume you do too. Because most businesses work with an accountant, it would be good if you choose something that your accountant says, yeah, I can work with that, or yes, I use that. Because the better your books are, I hope you realize this. Here's another benefit. The straighter the books are throughout the year, the less complicated it is to do your taxes. And as you may guess, the more complicated, the more billable hours that you have. So your accountant's going to love you, and that's someone you want to love you. Number one, and number two, it can in effect make it less expensive. Again, going to help with that tax prep. And I don't know about you, but this is important to me. I like customer support. If something is going wrong, the first thing I want to do is ask the platform, how can I get help? That saves me a billable hour with the accountant. Okay. And so customer support is really important to me. Again, this is why I put quotes around requirements, but I think these are just best practices. So, what are some options for your business? Let's talk about it. I have broken this up into a few sections for y'all. Okay. I first have called this free and or very low cost, and we're going to walk through platform by platform. So one thing I would do, if I were you, if you're looking for software, write these down and go exploring. We'll talk more about that. I will also say Janet's on the call now. Janet, so glad you're here. But I will send these slides to Janet and she can forward out to the attendees. If you would like to look back, don't feel like, you missed something or anything like that. But one that I have always been a fan of and that I recommended to many clients was Wave. If you have or have not heard of that, it is a free software. There are paid options to all of these. Certainly, these companies want to make money, but they offer a free option with invoicing, reporting. We'll talk about what they have. And another option that does have a free side to it is Zoho Books. Now, I want to tell you, free tends to not be as good. These are very reputable companies, and the free versions are very good. But what they will have are limited options potentially compared to others. Okay. But that doesn't mean it won't work for you. There's no need to pay for a really expensive plan if it adds all of these things that you will never utilize, right? And so a small plan may very well work. So let's talk about Wave. It is free. And Wave tends to, and I'm not saying you have to be this, but in looking at their verbiage and how they market themselves, they really advertise to freelancers, sole proprietors, maybe single member LLCs, really small businesses tend to benefit from a software like this. What does it do? It certainly provides free on the free plan, your basic bookkeeping and accounting, invoicing, which is great, receipt scanning if you are trying to track your expenses. It does connect very easily to your bank, so you have that connectability. It does provide financial reports and it will pull things that you put in to then make a de facto P&L or cash flow statement. I'm not saying you won't then, need to look over it, make sure everything is functioning correctly. And we can look at these things, of course, with you here at the SBDC. We're not your CPA nor are we your bookkeeper, but we review financials with companies all the time. And it does have payroll and payment processing available, some of which require additional fees. Again, it just depends. That's why this is really recommended, the free version, for these smaller businesses. Maybe you don't have a traditional payroll. Core features, the things that most every one of us will need or want, they are free. And in my opinion, this is taking feedback from clients of the past. It is easy to use. And I agree, it is very easy. Not as intimidating as others. The automation and the integrations are limited compared to some unless you up the package, right? And customer support can be limited. I did tell you that's important to me. There is still customer support, but the higher the package you have, guess what? It gets better and better. That's important to realize. Um, so I see a question here. Use QuickBooks Online to record your receipts and using as attachments within the software. I worry that throwing away the originals is bad practice. My thoughts. Just my thought here. Again, this is personal opinion. David, that's a great question. I track my receipts very similar in my business. And if it is a cloud-based software, right, it should be stored on the cloud. You should not lose it. That's why we want a cloud-based software. That said, I tend to be a very organized and protective person of the things that I do. So I do tend to keep the receipt. That's just my personal opinion. I organize them by month, so it's very easy to find instead of having the shoebox, that we all hear about. But I do think an organization is needed, and that's not what I take to my accountant. I can promise you that they go in to the software and look at what I've scanned and that for sure. But I do have it there just out of comfort of my own being. I will leave that up to you, but I do think it's best practice, especially when I'm in that current tax year. But again, you do keep your tax returns for X amount of years. Best practice, I think so. But if you're just throwing them without any organization into a box, that's not going to do you a lot of good. So think of a system there. But that's my personal thoughts. I do both, but I tend to be a little extra. We'll put it that way. So here's Wave. As you can see here, there is a free plan. That's why I put it here. Unlimited estimates, unlimited invoices, billing, bookkeeping records, online payments, invoice on the go. They have an app, very easy to use, cash flow. And as you can see, there are more things that come with the Pro plan. And you can see here the Pro plan, which, it goes further. You can read more on the side. $16 a month. That is billed monthly. Most all of these softwares, when you pay annually, you do save money. But we'll talk about that at the end. And so here is, just a price breakdown. Here's a question. If I use a credit card for business, do I need to keep the receipts? So this is not official accounting advice, right? I'm not your CPA. I only use a business card myself. I would recommend that you work with your accountant there to decide what they want to do. I think working with with your business card there is going to solve you a lot of heartache for sure. And I tend to organize that way. However, if the desire is to keep the receipt, it will never hurt you. Do I produce the receipts in my own personal circumstance for the accountant? No, but I do a lot of scanning. But if you use your credit card just for business purposes, that will be advantageous. With that said, it is always important to work in tandem with your tax filer and your tax preparation service. That's always the answer, in my opinion. With scanning the receipts and organizing those better, the receipts tend to fade away. I agree. So that's why if you are scanning them, you should scan with immediacy, and that's what a lot of people forget too. They try to scan at the end of the year, and that tends to be an issue. It's always best to be on top of this for that reason. Those are great questions. I love it. Y'all are thinking the right things. I mentioned another free one, Zoho Books. I had a couple clients use this actually, and it has some pretty strong automation features for what I've seen and what I've heard clients say. Small to medium-sized businesses needing some automation in their bookkeeping, a great option. Again, it does have a free option, but I think it does market itself more to small and medium because there are more leveling up options in Zoho Books. So Zoho Books, very automated in their invoicing, payment expenses, multi-user access. That's something I'm going to hopefully remind you multiple times tonight. One difference at times amongst plans is how many users can have access. And many of them that say single user, you'll note it will say single user plus accountant access, and you can invite the accountant onto it. But again, I always would recommend that you talk with your accountant first and ask them, do they have a preference? Because again, they're going to be the one you're working in tandem with. There is a strong integration with a lot of third-party apps that they have authorization through the Zoho ecosystem. And of course, all of these things help with tax compliance. It is affordable and it is scalable. Okay. And scalable, again, you may tap out of what you need out of a certain free plan. That's true. Many options that we can go to here. They do have a limitation, at least they have in the past, to what the annual revenue can be to qualify for free. And I don't think it's complex, in my opinion, overly, but I do think it's more complex than Wave, just my personal opinion. So if real ease is what you're looking for, I think that's important to note. So as you can see here, there is a free version. This is billed annually. As you can see here, you can see the price difference. So the standard, and there are many more things below this. This screenshot does not include them all. But as you can see, there is a scalability. I'm looking at here from 0 to 60 a month. 60 a month may not be affordable to you, but 0 certainly is, maybe 15 is. And you can look at what it is asking for. If you do monthly, you would pay that cost at above. So you would pay 20 instead of 15, okay? But you can also notice maybe right here, it does say plans that go beyond basic. There are even 2 more options that have a lot more. And one of the main things it's adding, along with, many options that you may never use, in full honesty, is the ability to add users. I want to point out here at the top, you may see where it says pricing. Every single one of these softwares, and any software you'll find, will always break down pricing for you. And so it's always important to note that. And you see this yellow button? We're going to talk about that here in a few. Okay. Let's talk about other subscription-based. Those are subscription-based too. But I'm calling these different because they do not have a $0 option. The other ones have a free. If you say, JC, I have 0 money to put into this, I'm a very small business, I may recommend that you look at Wave. JC, I have 0 money, or I maybe have just a little and I need some scalability, you may look at Zoho Books. But you'll find that some of the plans in both of those, even that have free options, can be adjacent to these. I've already had someone in the comments talk about QBO or QuickBooks Online. This is probably the one that you've heard of, and there's a reason. It is the industry standard. It is, by and large, user friendly. Some people may disagree with that. It's not my favorite, if you want to know the truth. But do I use it? Yes, I do use it personally. But it is easier to use than some others, believe it or not. And it is quite scalable. FreshBooks really markets himself to service-based businesses. I'm not saying you have to be service-based, but that's really where they hit hard with a lot of strong invoicing needs. And Xero is a good business. They tend to market themselves as collaborative. And so the question you have to ask yourself is how many people on your team are in the finances? It's always good to have more than one eye, have someone check over you. Maybe that's the accountant, maybe that's someone else. But it can also be erroneous to have too many hands in the pot, right? And we all know that. And so that's a decision you should make very seriously. Xero also very much markets themselves to the scale. They like the scaling. QuickBooks, we got to talk about it. I can't do this training without it. Most accountants, this is probably what you're going to hear them say, but you may, use it, think it's not the right interface for you or too difficult. You may offer one of the other ones, and your accountant's going to have familiarity with them. I'm almost certain. But again, this is industry standard. Great for a small, medium size. You need a comprehensive solution. QuickBooks is a one-stop shop, whether you like it or not, it is. It's the standard for a reason. Cloud access, excellent. Mobile integration, certainly. Automation with bank feeds and how they categorize transactions, superior. Invoicing, payment tracking, financial reporting, tax prep tools, you name it. Payroll, inventory, third-party integrations, it does it all. QuickBooks is the standard. And so it's a great place to look. Pros, definitely scalable with those different pricing tiers. That's important to point out. And QuickBooks does have a lot of support and a lot of people adopt it, aka a lot of accountants adopt it. That's usually a great thing. It is higher price than some others, and it can have a learning curve. It can become user friendly on the base level, but it quickly becomes complicated. And if you're struggling with bookkeeping, in all honesty, I wouldn't say QuickBooks is overly user friendly. It's not going to be the thing you're just going to jump right in. If you were to compare QuickBooks to Wave, I promise you, Wave is going to seem a lot easier to you. Just my opinion here. All of that to say, here we go. So you are looking at a discount rate. I say this because I care about y'all. The people that are behind these brands, right? These brands are big. They have marketers. What do marketers do? They do a lead offer for you and they try to get you back in, or to get you in at that low rate. So what you can see here, save 50% for 3 months. So if you look at that top number, of course, it's twice as large as the large number they're telling you. If you're on the simple QuickBooks plan, for 3 months you would pay 1750, but then you would move to 35. And by the way, I may teach this training in the future again with Louisville. I will re-update it. I took these screenshots for you today. And so these numbers are relevant as of 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central Time on what is today, the 4th of February. Okay. Essentials Plus, and you can see there are so many things below this. If I included it all, we wouldn't have been able to read it, right? There's many integrations. But do know that the price will then go up. What would I recommend for a nonprofit? Depends on the size, honestly. Um, this is my opinion. Let me share this at the end. Cindy, I have a good comment for you at the end. And so I will address that at the end. And if I don't, please remind me, because I think that's going to be a really good wrap-up question. And it's a very important one. That's right. So depending on nonprofit status, you may be able to get a special pricing, especially when there is support. You can always inquire. And some of these entities also have an inquiry model, and you could also share that. But QuickBooks, in my personal experience, is what I've seen most nonprofits use. It's the nonprofit that I work with in my personal life and manage the finance and chair that committee on. We use QuickBooks, just in full disclosure. So you can see the prices here. We're getting a little bit more expensive, but if this is the option for you, this is what I would say. Am I going to say $35 per month is nothing? No, I was just telling you every expense matters, right? But if it's going to keep you accurately tracking your expenses and the inflows and outflows of your business, in my opinion, of course, ignoring Kentucky sales tax in this calculation, I think that we would all find that from the base plan, which is $420 per year on a monthly basis, you probably would make that benefit back. But $400 is $400, and I acknowledge that. Okay. FreshBooks, they again really market themselves to service-based businesses, freelancers, consultants, people that are providing services and a lot of invoices. They focus on their invoicing infrastructure, time tracking, expense management. If you're working on an invoice, you may have a billable hour. And so having a good interface for that, that's easy to communicate both for you and the person that you're invoicing is really important. Payment processing, recurring billing, you can set up these automations on most all of these. Financial reports tailored to service base, they do say that. And great integration, as with always. Pretty easy to use by my view. And again, that hourly or project basis, that's a different business model, a common business model. I don't mean it that way, but it's different than a transaction that we're swiping, you buy this, and it's this price, right? You're working on a project basis. It's a very different structure. And so if that is you, I think this is one that you might want to look at. The accounting features, though, compared to a QuickBooks or to Xero, the other ones in this model, in my opinion, are a little bit more limited if you look at the line by line. And again, the more automation, the more reporting, it gets more expensive. Here's the pricing model. There's a light version. Yeah, I like it. They're offering it $760 for 6 months. Here we go with marketing again. But at the normal price, which I can guarantee you it will renew at, right? It is $19 per month. Same with the 1320. They're saying that's the most popular, whether that's a marketing tactic or data driven. I'll let them decide. That is discounted from 33, et cetera, et cetera. However, this is one of those examples. Some of them you have to scroll further to see it. They do have select. This is often for bigger clients, I will say, but you can talk to someone, chat about the needs, and you can chat with what, that might look like. And they may quote you something that's more favorable or something that's beyond what they typically offer. Again, this is really cut off because it goes on, down, down, down. But service-based businesses are huge. As you can see here in the light plan, they're immediately talking to the real-time tracking of expenses and the creation and send estimates, but you have 5 open invoices. Okay, that's something to note. Okay, that they're going to want you to go to that plus, and that one more plan, we're up to 50 already. That's a pretty big difference. Or you can go unlimited. Okay, something to note. And I will honor this and stand corrected. I have had a client use that in the past as well. A lot of this I based off that along with my own research, but in my recollection, and that's not one I have personally used, that is on the basis of open invoice. I wonder if that has changed, and it would be important to check that out. However, I don't personally have an account to do so, and I just went off their verbiage. In the past, it was what was open. However, maybe it is scaled, and after you send, I can't imagine it's after you send 5, you have to go to this, because who only sends 5 invoices? It has always been, to my knowledge, on the open basis. But please do clarify that if that's one that you look at, because 5 would rack up pretty quick. 0, the last one here in the subscription-based only models. Multi-user access, that is something that they very much go for. Unlimited users in their plans. Role-based permission. So you may say, well, I don't need unlimited users. I can say, okay, Dave, you're in. However, you can only do ABC. So if you're working in a team-based capacity, it could be that a higher price plan like this could still be more cost effective for you, because those monthly fees start racking up, right? Of course, bank reconciliation, strong inventory management, they really harp on that, built-in payroll and compliance support. And they say we have 1,000 third-party business apps we compare to. They're trying to really sell that integration to you. Many of them have similar numbers. Again, team-based is the pro-con customer support. That's something that I read on many forums. It's not that they don't have it, they do have it, but I did read it, so I'm disclosing here to you. And there are a lot of features. You saw that 1,000 integration. Even as I was flipping through the side and looking through things, the more integrations there are, yes, it can be great when set up correctly, but it's just like a washing machine or it's just like an oven, right? My washer went out in my house that I live in here on Lake Cumberland, and it was my aunt's house, and I had the same washer that she had when she built this house in 1972. I'm serious. And it went out in the year 2023. But I loved it because it was simple. And so when I went to the store, I said, I want as few buttons as possible because there's less things that can break. I think there's some truth to that in our everyday life and our financial life. I don't know if y'all feel that way. Maybe I'm just a simple person, but it's something to acknowledge. Here's the plan. Look at these numbers, okay? So marketers are smart. I love marketers. I love marketing. Again, I really cropped this to make it big. $2 per month, $470 per month. That's amazing. Look at the top. 90% off for 3 months. That 2 becomes 20. That 470 becomes 47. And I'll tell you, this is something I've seen happen so many times to people. They're like, well, I got this. It was $2 a month or whatever the price was. But again, they're not tracking the expense of the software they have to track their expenses. And then that goes up to 20, and maybe they do a price hike after a year, whatever it is. You got to know what you're paying for these things because it's a business expense and it is certainly a write-off. Okay, and so you would need to compare on a platform by platform basis. I have to say it, right? You can use spreadsheets. This is Excel, Google Sheets. These are free Google Sheets and or Excel. If you have Microsoft Suite, right? Maybe there's a free version. I've been on university version for so long. Many people feel like they're not skilled here. If this is something that you are good at, You can take the time to build your infrastructure. But this is my opinion. Do I think this works? Yes. Do I also use Excel? Oh, yeah. But I personally use QuickBooks. Just me, myself, personal, JC's life, and my business. That said, remember this. These softwares, you're paying for them for a reason. You're paying for expertise, you're paying for the developers, you're paying for the interface. They are easier to use. They have way more tracking capabilities. And if you're building your own infrastructure, if you will, here on a spreadsheet-based financials, is it likely that you may forget something? I will speak for myself. Yes. Probably a lot of things. And that's someone that is very financially motivated and very financially conscious. I will forget things, I can promise you. Maybe you won't, and I love that for you, and I'm jealous, but I need more infrastructure than this, and I think the average small business does too. So just my opinion. Google Sheets, of course, cloud-based, depending on how you save Excel, and how you set up your Microsoft account. But all of that to say something to note. Do I think this is sufficient? It can be. Do I think it's as easy to use? No. Do I think it's as efficient? No. Just my personal opinion here, okay? All of that to say, what's my final advice? And I'm going to come back to also your question here, Cindy. I think this is important. What do you need to do? You need to evaluate these. You saw that shiny yellow button. I said, we'll talk about it. Almost all, if not all, of these entities offer a free trial. Now, here's JC being the little financial devil in your life. I want you to, be almost falling asleep at night and hear JC say, did you cancel that free trial? Yeah, I don't want you to pay it. You have to remember to cancel it if you don't want it. But at the end of the day, I can sit here and say, I use QuickBooks. And you could sit there and say, QuickBooks is the bane of my existence. I like Wave. I love that for you. I like Wave too. An interface is only as good as the person using it. And you're not going to be perfectly skilled with it in the beginning. But we have all been on things that are just innately cumbersome, or that we don't like, or that we don't jive with, right? Trust your gut. You know you. Finance, accounting, bookkeeping, whatever these strategies are only effective if you can do it in the long run. If you use free trials, and that's the other thing about free trials, if you're building out your whole infrastructure and you choose not to use that, that is a time loss, okay? That said, you can still test it very much, but you have to ask yourself, will I keep this up? Am I able? And if the answer is no, it is not for you. If the answer is yes, I can with some effort, put in the effort. That's my view. But you have to be honest with yourself because consistency matters. So going back to the nonprofit again, I told you I personally, definitely have experience in nonprofit finance, personally use QuickBooks in conjunction with a tax service. Very much had a call actually with them today. With that said, analyze the structure. How big is the nonprofit? Nonprofit I'm talking about has a very large 8-digit endowment and a 7-digit budget per year. So we're talking, big money here. And so we need that. However, with your infrastructure, it may be different. There is nothing wrong with speed dating these. Don't sink your time into it, but it has to fit you. Wave may be perfect for you, right? Zero may be perfect for you. QuickBooks may be perfect for you. That's great. But you don't know until you try. Finance and business processes are not a one size fits all. However, what is also true and must be acknowledged is that bookkeeping is important. It's necessary. It's so very necessary. Number one. And number two, you can't afford not to do it. I'm going to stress that again. Let's make that number two. Number three, there are no cost options, right? We went over two plus, potentially um, your spreadsheet base, but there are very low cost options, and it is a business expense. Do keep that in mind. Okay. I am actually going to tell you just one quick thing about the SBDC. I see some great questions coming in the chat, and I'll get right to them. Again, the SBDC is not your accountant. If the degree is there, we can act on your behalf as an attorney, as an accountant, all of these things. But we are here to help you in any way possible. We do look at financials with clients. We help clients look at financials and plan and maybe access the loan, or look at scaling their business, look at the inner workings of the business, look at the efficiencies. These are things that many of our coaches, very much Dave included on this call, are highly skilled at. And I hope that you will take advantage of our services. Now, many of you all are in Louisville. You may already be working with the Louisville Center, and that's great, but I do want to remind you, we are statewide. And so if you have never been set up with a coach, if you need me to connect you, I'm very happy to do so, but the process is very simple. I have the number here on the screen. I always think I'm on a commercial when I say this, but it's 1-888-414-7232. That's 1-888. I'm going to put this in the chat too. 1-888-414-7232. You can call. You're going to be in our system, obviously, because you attended the training tonight, and we are very happy to place you with one of our business coaches around the state. It's a great resource, and I do hope you'll take advantage of it, right? Having more people in your corner is a good thing. I'm going to come back here big. I'm big. No one asked for that, but let's look at the questions. Dave, wasn't that fun? Bookkeeping is
Great.
fun.
I
I
know.
Let's see here. Where did we start? David, right? That's the last one. David said he worries that it's too easy to mess up with Kentucky sales tax calculating, tracking, paying. People say a sales tax audit is worse than the IRS. Have you ever seen a self audit to utilize help feel confident with sales tax? I have thoughts on this, but I see Dave shaking his head. Dave, answer.
I will agree that the Kentucky Revenue Cabinet is much harder than the IRS actually. So yeah, I've never done a self audit, but if you're using a good bookkeeper, especially like with a larger firm, then you can rely on them, and they also have like errors and omissions insurance too, that sometimes if things get super expensive, you can kind of collect on that. But that's pretty rare that you need to do that. But just, while they are hard, they're not unreasonable. So if you have, good records and things, just to go back on something else, early on, there was a couple of questions on, whether to scan invoices in or, receipts in. The IRS and the Kentucky Revenue Cabinet allow for PDF receipts, in a tax audit. You don't have to have a physical copy. So it comes down to the safety of your data. And if you're worried about that, of course, you use an online, cloud-based backup with your system. You can have more than one backup. So maybe you back up to, like the QuickBooks system, and then you also back up to OneDrive or Google Drive. You can also download a backup copy onto a hard drive, a physical hard drive, and have that somewhere that you feel safe. So it's all about having the data, not so much the physical copy anymore.
Agree. 100% agree. And I also echo sales tax audits, known people that have been through them, harder.
Yeah.
Definitely harder. And that's why I think it can't be stressed enough that working in tandem with your accountant is of utmost importance. This is maybe my opinion, Dave, you can say if you agree, but when I think about what I need in my business and what is useful in a good business, a good accountant is at the top.
Yep.
That's my view, at least. Someone you can work with, you can be honest with, have open dialogue with. You need to be able to jive with them. I think that's really important. So let's see here. 6 separate small LLCs use QuickBooks desktops, going away, moving to QuickBooks Online. Don't want to pay for a different subscription for every LLC. Are there other providers out there that allow multi-entity consolidation? That's an interesting question. And
That's a
I
great
don't know if
question.
I have a direct answer to that. Do you, Dave?
Again, I have a bookkeeper, so I don't dive into the nuts and bolts pool too often, but we have several companies on there. I think we just pay for a single seat and have separate companies in each one. But again, consult your professional.
Yeah, that would be my advice too. There are different things that I do under, one umbrella, and I do have it separated very clear in my books, but I don't have multiple separate LLCs. The separation of entities within an LLC is quite simple, and I would presume that there is a way to automate that. But if you're shopping around, whether you go to QBO or what you go to, that would also be something, one, I would work with your accountant on, but two, you can quite literally just ask the customer support of the provider, because that's going to be important. Let's see. We've got the questions, Dave.
I know, it's great.
I love it. Let's see here. When you're making donation to a nonprofit, should one donate from the business income or personnel or personal income?
Hmm. I think that again, I'm not a tax professional, but I recall a conversation. I think that if you make charitable donations, it's a personal, but I don't think a business can deduct that as an expense. And so,
Again, not CPA either, but I always do that personally.
yeah.
And usually if you do something personally, depending on what the paperwork that you fill out, like lots of people are on this call from Louisville. My neighbor next door, I'm sponsoring her, little kids baseball team in the Germantown Baseball League, which is a big thing, right? Well, I'm paying for that as JC, but I can put, the name on it that I so please.
Mhm.
And so I will be putting my business, of course. That's an option often, but I personally do my personal name because I know I can deduct it in that way because I itemize and take over the standard deduction. But
Mhm.
again, two non-CPAs on the call.
That's right.
Let's see here. Do you help setting up with tax accounts for Kentucky and unemployment stuff? Dave, you can talk about process working in the field there.
Yeah. So actually, we're at a little disadvantage here because the Kentucky Revenue Cabinet is changing all their interfaces and stuff like that. So about a week ago, I could have told you exactly what to do. They're actually the system is down for 2 weeks, so you can't set up taxes or file taxes for a couple of weeks. After that, they'll have a new interface, and I think we'll all just have to learn it together. Would be my answer at this moment.
And we'll learn it together. I mean, in the past, again, we could have said, as Dave said, so to be determined there, but it will come out and will be updated.
Mhm.
Which of the softwares mentioned has the most comprehensive chart of accounts? Maybe I'm biased here, but I'm going to tell you QuickBooks is industry standard. I think it's very comprehensive. I've never needed something I could not use or
Mhm.
could not find, excuse me. And I think a lot of accountants would agree with that. So for me personally, the one that I use, I have bias to that answer. And so if comprehensibility is what you're looking at, it's what you need to look at. But sometimes I do find some of the features, our marketers talking, right? It talks about this comprehensive nature, and you do have to ask yourself, is that useful? Will I actually access that? Because you might be paying for a feature that has no relevance to you. And I do think that's to be considered. The
Yeah.
presentation will be emailed to you. I'll be sending it to Janet, and she can email out to you all. Um, Brittany, this is a great question. Advice or tools we can use to vet an accountant. Dave, what do you say there?
Um, it's almost like that 3 date rule, you want to spend a little bit of time with it, get some recommendations, meet them out for lunch, go to the office, meet who else works there. If they're a single, operational guy, working out of their basement or stuff like that, maybe you want to talk to some other clients, but it's you want to really take a couple time before you jump in with them.
And I will say this too. I think a good question to ask them, And, Brittany, I know you personally in IRL, in real life. You know what I do business-wise, and it's a little bit non-traditional. It is, in my opinion, paramount for an accountant to understand you and your business model. And with what I do, as you know, Brittany, I work in online publishing for the others. It's a little different. Did my accountant have great cognizance of that when he first started working with me over a decade ago? No. But I saw initiative. I saw research when I went into the first meeting I had with them, and I felt like that there would be work, and we have learned and grown together for sure. But he is excellent, and he is very good at doing what I do. And so, one, if you're in an industry, they're not going to disclose their clients per se, but they may say, I work in food and bev, I work in this a lot. That's always a win for me. That's just my personal opinion because I want to be understood. The more questions they have, the higher the billable hour too. Something to point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bookkeeper has you pay for multiple subscriptions for QBO for different LLCs. There you go. Love it. Answers from the crowd. So something I would verify, but that's an answer from QBO, and I appreciate that, Margaret. Having only one.
Oh. Uh-oh. We lost JC. There he is. There you are. You're back, but you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't know what happened. I was just yapping away. Sorry, guys. We have had technical issues. The last thing I was saying, did you hear me say thank you to Margaret?
Yes, that's what the
Okay.
last thing.
And then we were at Whitney. So sorry, guys. Quicken Software. One, I asked you, Dave, if is that still around? I know what you're talking about.
It is. Yeah, it's not with Intuit anymore. They sold it off to another little company. I've got a couple of clients that use it, so I've poked around in it. It's like it was. It's just it's a glorified spreadsheet, basically what it is. But
Yeah,
it's got its place.
sure, certainly. Let's see. Should I hire a CPA, tax strategist, or a bookkeeper, or all three? Ain't that the question? What do you think, Jay?
I've got a story because if I don't know. I like again, everybody does their own, you do but I like to separate things out as much as possible. So I have a CPA that only does tax. I have a bookkeeper that kind of does the books. I have a payroll service that just because would never let the bookkeeper do the books. So all three of them have to work together to get something done. So is that expensive? Yes, but back in the day, it would have saved me, a couple $100,000 if I had done it that way, so that's my story.
And I think that this is important, and I appreciate you sharing that, Dave, because we do very different things in our personal life. I have one person that works for me. I have a CPA.
Mhm.
I have me and I have Kaylee. And so and for years it was just me. And so I personally don't have the other. You could call me my own bookkeeper if you will. I'm very financially literate. And I do a lot of the processes myself, which may be the case for many of you in the size of small business represented on their call. And so all that to say, I think it does depend on the side of the business. And I've
Yeah.
been these years, I'm sufficient with the CPA, but there is a place for strategists. There's a place for bookkeepers. Absolutely. There's a place for specialists. Depends on the venture, for sure.
I will add one more little tidbit, JC, just,
Sure.
it's my philosophy that, if I'm a small business and I'm like you, like a solopreneur and I'm doing things, the more time I spend trying to do books and do all that stuff is time of taken away from where I can actually generate revenue because those are non-generating activities for me. So if I can outsource and pay somebody else to do it, I can pay them $50 an hour and I charge my time out at 120. Well, then I just made money by doing that. So
Absolutely.
philosophy on that.
It's opportunity cost.
Yes, exactly.
With the size business that I operate, it's not cumbersome personally for my time. I
Yeah.
also That's just like the nerd in me. But you're exactly right. You have to think about the value of your time and put that quantified into a dollar, without question. And I also think that leads to one more piece of advice. If you're a small business, it's hard to begin letting go.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and Dave and I have chatted about this. I think even when I talked about when I brought on Kaylee, I was a one-person show far longer than I should have been. And really, I should not be a two-person show. There's grounds for far more than that.
Yeah.
I will speak from my own error here. I would tell clients to do one thing and I was doing the other in my own business.
Yeah.
I had the hardest time bringing someone in. But I can tell you, I'm passable at many things. I can learn. I'm not the best at anything. I can promise you that. And I am, yes, spending more, paying for her, but I've, looking at the books for this year, I made more this year. I'm more profitable for sure. And this
Yeah.
was my first full year with Kaylee. I'm so much more efficient and my time is used better.
Yeah.
That's a great business strategy overall. And we got a yes from Margaret. Yes.
I will say you are a machine, JC. I don't know how you do the
I am a
output that you
machine.
do.
It's like, I'm walking through Germantown doing the Rocky. I got this. But you're so welcome. I appreciate you all. And Portia, I appreciate you telling me I was frozen, but I'm back.
Yeah.
We're back. So sorry for the technical difficulties. I appreciate you all.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think so.
You're so
Mhm.
welcome. I
Yeah.
appreciate you.
All right. Well, JC, I think that's all the questions. Yeah. Awesome. A lot of kudos there.
Thank you. Thank you. Y'all are making my day. An hour with me of an evening. There are probably more fun ways to spend it, but I do hope it was helpful. I appreciate you all.
Yeah, thank you, JC. You are a national treasure, and we appreciate everything you do.
National treasure or a Kentucky little germ that keeps coming back. I'm not sure, but I appreciate you regardless.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for joining this evening on our Toolkit Tuesday. Thanks, JC, and thanks, Janet, wherever you are. So catch up with us next Tuesday for another Toolkit Tuesday, and please reach out to us in any way you can. We're here to help. We're a free service. We've been where you are. Be happy to help. Happy to hear from you. So have a good evening, and we'll see you real soon.
Bye, guys. See ya. See you, Dave.
See ya.